There are lots of opinions about the integrity of the election, the irregularities of mail-in voting, of election voting machines and voting software. One of the companies is Smartmatic, and we reached out to one of the leading authorities on open source software for elections, Eddie Perez, for his insight and views. Eddie is the Global Director of Tech Development at the Open Source Election Technology Institute. We asked him for his assessment of Smartmatic and recent claims about the company.
Have you seen any evidence that Smartmatic software was used to flip votes anywhere in the U.S. in this election?
I have not seen any evidence that Smartmatic software was used to delete, change, alter anything related to vote tabulation.
Smartmatic says its software was never used outside of L.A. County in 2020. Do you know whether or not that's true?
That is my understanding. Smartmatic functioned as the contract manufacturer for the Los Angeles County voting system, and that was a customized system that was effectively built to the county's order. I am not aware of them having any other direct customers, relationships with election officials in the United States.
What about Smartmatic and Dominion? Do you know if they're related, whether one owns the other, whether Dominion uses Smartmatic software?
Both Dominion and Smartmatic have individually and respectively put out very clear statements from their corporate headquarters, each of them indicating they are independent companies, they are not related to each other. It is my understanding that neither one of them has an ownership stake in the other or anything like that. They are, again, for all intents and purposes, two completely separate companies.
Have you seen any evidence of a connection between George Soros and Smartmatic?
I'm not aware of any direct connection between George Soros and Smartmatic. It is my understanding that an executive at Smartmatic has some sort of relationship with one of Soros's foundations. That's the extent of my knowledge.
Have you seen any evidence of Smartmatic sending U.S. votes to be tabulated in foreign countries?
No, I'm not aware of any evidence that Smartmatic is sending U.S. votes to be tabulated in foreign countries. Again, I'm not aware outside of Los Angeles County of Smartmatic tabulating any votes in the United States because I'm not aware of them having any customer relationships in the U.S. And secondly, as others have pointed out, irrespective of which voting technology vendor we're talking about, in the United States, the ballots that are cast in the United States are tabulated in the United States.
Are you aware of any instances in which Smartmatic's technology was banned in the U.S. in 2020 due to security weaknesses or wrongdoing?
I am not. I'm not aware of any instances where Smartmatic's technology was banned in the U.S. Again, it is my understanding that outside of one customer in Los Angeles County, Smartmatic has no presence in the voting technology marketplace in the United States.
Nothing quite like having to air an entire segment rebutting your own arguments from your own show to your own audience. And yet that's exactly what happened here as Lou Dobbs suddenly changed his tune from the last several weeks, where he's likely been the most outspoken person on the entire network when it comes to perpetuating bogus election fraud claims, like the conspiracy theory that the company Smartmatic was responsible for widespread fraud that led to Donald Trump's loss in the election. And if it sounds ridiculous, trust me, it was.
Sidney, good to have you with us. Dominion voting system seems to be figuring larger and larger in the interest of your legal team. And what is the latest?
Oh, definitely, Lou. I've just gotten some stunning evidence from a firsthand witness, a high-ranking military officer who was present when Smartmatic was designed in a way that and I'm going to just read you some of these statements, if you don't mind, so I get them exactly right from the affidavit. Designed in a way that the system could change the vote of each voter without being detected. He wanted the software itself to function in such a manner that if the voter were to place their thumbprint or fingerprint on a scanner, then the thumbprint would be tied to a record of the voter's name and identity as having voted, but that voter would not be tracked to the changed vote. He made it clear that the system would have to be set up but not leave any evidence of the changed vote for a specific voter, and that there would be no evidence to show and nothing to contradict that the name or the fingerprint or thumbprint was going with a changed vote. Smartmatic agreed to create such a system and produce the software and hardware that accomplished the result for President Chavez.
Yes, and Smartmatic, the chairman is Admiral Pete Neffinger, who is also transition team. That's an extraordinary situation as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So here's the other kicker. When the Smartmatic machines are, when somebody's losing, like, for example, when Maduro and his supporters realized the size of the other guy's lead, they were worried that they were in crisis mode and would lose the election. The Smartmatic machines used for voting in each state were connected to the Internet, reported their information over the Internet to the Caracas Control Center real time, so the decision was made to reset the entire system.
And that was just one of the countless times that Sidney Powell was on Lou Dobbs' show, spewing these baseless claims about Smartmatic and Dominion voting systems and the CIA and the DOJ and Republican governors and secretaries of state and Cuba, China, Venezuela, and even Hugo Chavez all being in cahoots to deprive Trump of a second term, which all sounds very real and not at all like a conspiratorial rabbit hole. But the reason that Lou Dobbs had this fact check rebutting his own segment play on his show is simple. They were threatened with a legal notice from Smartmatic. The CEO of the company released a statement about Fox News along with OAN and Newsmax saying, quote, "They have no evidence to support their attacks on Smartmatic because there is no evidence. This campaign was designed to defame Smartmatic and undermine legitimately conducted elections." The legal notice continued, quote, "Fox News embarked on a disinformation campaign against Smartmatic shortly after the election closed and continuing today. Over the course of the campaign, Fox News published and republished dozens of false and misleading statements regarding Smartmatic." The legal notice said it believed Fox News has, quote, "no evidence or credible source to support the false statements made on air," and said the network, quote, "would have easily discovered the falsity of the statements and implications being made about Smartmatic by performing even a modicum of investigation." And finally, quote, "Smartmatic demands a full and complete retraction of all false and defamatory statements and reports published by Fox News. This retraction must be done with the same intensity and level of coverage that you used to defame the company in the first place." And so that's why this happened. It's because Fox and Lou Dobbs knew that they had no ground to stand on. And so instead of setting themselves up for failure by fighting back, they acquiesced to Smartmatic's demands. In other words, they knew they got caught lying. If you ever needed more proof that their so-called reporting is complete fiction, this is it. The simple fact is this: Donald Trump lost the election. Not because of fraud, not because of rigged voting machines, not because of dead people casting ballots, and no, not because of Hugo Chavez. He lost because his presidency was a failure. So people like Lou Dobbs can continue pretending that they're the victims of some anti-democratic ruse, but this was democracy actually working that led to a resounding victory for Biden at the ballot box. If you like this video, please check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I take a deep dive into the week's most important stories and interview major players in politics, including Kamala Harris, Katie Porter, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Eric Swalwell, Mary Trump, Al Franken, Cory Booker, and many, many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.